Have you ever caught yourself wondering, why do I think this way when almost no one else seems to? Maybe you notice things others overlook. Maybe you ask questions people avoid. Maybe the conversations that excite you about meaning, about existence, about the patterns behind life, leave others shifting in their seats, waiting to talk about something more normal. And in those moments, you can't help but feel different. Almost like you're carrying a mind that doesn't quite fit into the world around you. But here's the secret. This difference is not a weakness. It's a sign. A psychological marker that your mind operates on a frequency only a rare few ever experience. Some call it overthinking, others call it strangeness. But in truth, it's proof you see the world with unusual clarity. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And sometimes, becoming who you are means realizing you don't think like 99% of people. You think deeper, wider, differently. In this video, we'll uncover 8 psychological signs that reveal if you're one of those rare minds. As you listen, you might feel exposed, but you'll also feel understood. Because these aren't just random traits, they're hidden truths about how rare thinkers navigate life, love, pain, and meaning. So stay with me until the very end, because once you recognize these signs in yourself, you'll never look at your own mind the same way again. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a situation where everyone else seems to see only what's on the surface, but you notice something more? It could be as simple as sitting in a coffee shop. People around you are just drinking, scrolling their phones, chatting about the latest news. But you're watching the way the barista smiles only with her mouth and not her eyes. You're noticing the nervous tapping of someone's fingers at the next table. You're hearing not just what people are saying, but how they're saying it. This is the first sign you think differently than most. You see patterns and connections that go unnoticed by others. To you, the world isn't random. It's a web, and every little thread connects to another. Psychologists call this a high level of pattern recognition, a trait often linked with creativity, intuition, and even genius. But for you, it's not just an intellectual thing, it's personal. You can sense when something is off in a room, even if no one else notices. You make connections between events, ideas, and emotions that others dismiss as coincidence. But here's the challenge. When you try to explain it, people often don't get it. They may laugh, brush it off, or tell you that you're reading too much into things. Yet, deep down, you know what you see is real, and this makes you feel both gifted and isolated, because seeing the world in patterns isn't just about intelligence. It's about carrying a mind that never stops connecting the dots, even when everyone else is blind to the bigger picture. Now, let's move to the second sign, and this one you've probably struggled with your whole life. It's about small talk, the kind of shallow conversations that most people seem comfortable having for hours. How's the weather? Did you watch that game? What did you eat for dinner last night? For most people, this is enough, but for you it feels like a slow suffocation. Your mind craves something more, conversations about meaning, purpose, dreams, fears, the mysteries of life. You don't want to just know what someone does. You want to know who they are. Have you noticed how quickly your energy drains when you're stuck in small talk? You smile politely, you nod along, but inside you're screaming for an escape. And then, the moment you find someone willing to talk about the real stuff, whether it's about the nature of the universe, the struggles of the human heart, or even just the truth of what they're going through, you feel alive again. Suddenly, you're not bored, you're connected. This isn't about being antisocial. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about your brain being wired for depth. Shallow words can't fill you because your mind feeds on meaning. You're not looking for endless chatter. You're looking for resonance. But here's the painful part. Most people aren't wired like you. They find your questions too heavy, your thoughts too intense. And so, you often walk away from conversations feeling unfulfilled, wondering if maybe you're just too much. But let me tell you, you're not too much. You're exactly enough. It's just that your hunger for depth means only a rare few can truly feed your soul. And when you find those rare souls, you recognize them instantly. You feel at home. So these are the first two signs. You see patterns everywhere, even when others don't. And you crave depth so much that small talk feels like a prison. If either of these hit home, you're already seeing why your mind doesn't work like the majority. But there's more, much more. Because in the next part, we'll explore the emotional side of thinking differently, how your heart feels things most people can't even put into words, and why being misunderstood might be the heaviest burden of all. Have you ever been told you're too sensitive, that you take things too personally, or that you feel too much? If so, you might already know what I'm about to say. One of the clearest signs you think differently than 99% of people is the depth of your emotions. For you, emotions aren't just passing moods, they're entire worlds. When you're happy, you don't just smile, you feel a surge of energy, like your chest could burst with light. When you're sad, it's not just a quiet sigh, it's an ocean wave that crashes inside you. And when you care about someone, you don't do it halfway. You give pieces of yourself that others might guard forever. Psychologists link this to something called emotional intensity, a trait often found in highly creative and empathetic people. But for you, it's not a theory, it's lived experience. Imagine this: a simple song on the radio makes you stop in your tracks, tears in your eyes, because somehow it reflects your entire story in 3 minutes. Or you see a stranger struggling on the street, and it hurts you as if it's your own pain. You can't just walk by, you feel. But let's be honest, this gift often feels like a curse. Because while you experience life in colors others can't see, you also feel the weight of pain more heavily. A careless word can sit in your heart for days. A heartbreak can scar you for years. And while others move on quickly, you're still processing, still feeling, still carrying the echoes. Yet, let me remind you, this depth is not weakness, it's strength. It's what allows you to understand, to connect, to create meaning where others see none. It's what makes you human in the fullest sense of the word. So if you've ever wondered why you can't just shake things off like everyone else, it's because you're not wired for surface-level living. You're wired for depth. And though it hurts, that depth is what makes your life and your love so much richer. Now, let's talk about something even heavier: the feeling of being misunderstood. Have you ever been in a room full of people and thought, I don't belong here? It doesn't matter if they're your colleagues, classmates, even family. There's a sense of distance, like there's an invisible glass wall between you and everyone else. They laugh at things you don't find funny. They value things you don't care about. And when you finally speak up, they look at you as if you've said something strange, maybe even unsettling. This is the fourth sign. You often feel like an outsider in your own world. Jung once said, "The most intense conflicts are not between two people, but between one person and themselves." And for you, the conflict is this: how do you live in a world that wasn't built for the way your mind works? It's not that you can't fit in. You can. You've probably learned how to laugh along, nod politely, blend in when necessary. But deep down, you know it's not real. You're not showing your true self, because you've learned that when you do, People often misunderstand or even reject you. Think about your school years. Maybe you didn't quite fit with any group. Or in adulthood, maybe you've sat through conversations where everyone's excited about gossip, money, or the latest trends. And you're just quietly drifting, wondering why it all feels empty. This loneliness isn't just social, it's psychological. Because when no one fully understands you, you begin to question yourself. Is something wrong with me? Why can't I just be like them? But here's the truth. Nothing is wrong with you. In fact, being misunderstood is one of the clearest signs of originality. It means you're not a copy of the world. You're something rare, something unique. So yes, you may feel out of place. But that's because your place is not everywhere. Your place is with the few who can truly see you. And once you find them, the glass wall shatters. You're no longer alone. You're recognized. So far, we've uncovered 4 powerful signs. You see patterns others miss. You crave depth over small talk. You feel emotions in ways most can't even imagine. And often you feel like a misunderstood outsider. But this journey goes even deeper. Because in the next part, we'll explore how your mind doesn't just think in straight lines. It thinks in symbols, in metaphors, in questions that stretch beyond logic itself. And if you've ever been haunted by the question why, then part 3 is going to feel like it was written just for you. Let me ask you this. When you look at the world, do you only see what's in front of you? Or do you see what it represents? For most people, a tree is just a tree. It gives shade, it has leaves, it grows. But for you, a tree might symbolize growth, resilience, or even the cycle of life and death. When you hear a story, you don't just follow the plot. You notice the hidden meanings behind it, the metaphors that point to something bigger. This is the 5th sign. Your mind doesn't think in straight, literal lines. It thinks in symbols, metaphors, and big pictures. Carl Jung called this the language of the unconscious. He believed that symbols are the way our deeper mind communicates truths that words alone can't capture. And if you find yourself naturally drawn to symbols, whether in dreams, art, religion, or philosophy, it's because your mind operates on that deeper level. Think about your own dreams. Do they often feel layered, like they're trying to tell you something? Or maybe you've noticed how a random event in your day somehow mirrors something else happening in your life. These aren't coincidences to you. They're messages, connections, pieces of a larger puzzle. But here's the catch. When you try to explain this to most people, they stare at you blankly. They don't see the metaphor, they just see the surface. They don't hear the poetry, you do, and that can feel lonely. Yet it's also a gift, because symbolic thinking allows you to see life in ways that others can't. It makes your perspective richer, more creative, more connected to meaning. You're not just living, you're interpreting, translating, and constantly pulling wisdom out of the ordinary. Now let's move to the 6th sign. And if you've ever been accused of asking too many questions, this one will hit home. For you, the world isn't just about what is, it's about why it is. Why do people behave the way they do? Why do we fall in love? Why do we fear death? Why do we exist at all? This relentless curiosity isn't about being nosy. It's about being wired to seek truth. Most people are content with answers like, "That's just the way it is." But for you, that's not enough. You can't stop digging, questioning, peeling back layers until you reach the core. And yes, this can make life complicated. Because while others are satisfied living on autopilot, you can't rest until you understand. It's why simple conversations often leave you bored. It's why you find yourself drawn to philosophy, psychology, spirituality. the fields that dare to ask the questions most avoid. But let's be honest, this search for why can be exhausting. Sometimes it keeps you up at night. Sometimes it makes you feel like you're carrying a burden, a hunger that never fully goes away. People may tell you to stop overthinking, but you know it's not about overthinking. It's about refusing to live a life without depth. Jung believed that those who constantly ask why are often on what he called the individuation process, the path of becoming fully themselves. And maybe that's you. You're not just asking why out of curiosity. You're asking because deep down, you know that life has meaning, and you won't stop until you touch it. Here's the paradox. This endless questioning can make you feel lost at times. But it can also make you wise, because the people who dare to ask why are the ones who eventually discover truths most never see. So far, we've uncovered 6 powerful signs. You see patterns others miss. You crave depth over small talk. You feel emotions more deeply than most. You often feel misunderstood. You think in symbols and metaphors, and you can't ignore the why behind life. But there are still 2 more signs, and they're perhaps the most personal of all. Because the 7th sign is about solitude, why it feels both like your refuge and your prison. And the 8th sign, it's about your hunger for meaning, a hunger that defines your very existence. And once you hear these last 2, you'll understand why your mind is part of the rare 1%. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly felt at peace? Was it at a crowded party, or was it when you were alone, in your room, with your thoughts, maybe with a book, or just staring out the window at the night sky? For most people, being alone is uncomfortable. They need noise, company, distraction. But for you, solitude isn't just something you can handle, it's something you need. And yet, here's the paradox. Solitude feels like both a curse and a blessing. On one hand, solitude is where you come alive. It's in those quiet hours that your thoughts stretch their wings, that you process life, that you connect to yourself in ways no one else can. It's where you hear your own voice, the voice that often gets drowned out in the chaos of daily life. Think about it. How many of your greatest insights came to you not in conversation, but in silence? Maybe while journaling, maybe during a long walk, maybe while lying awake at night, when the world finally went quiet. Solitude has a way of sharpening your mind, of making sense of the patterns you see and the questions you ask. But here's the painful side. Solitude also makes you feel lonely. Because as much as you crave it, there are moments when the silence becomes heavy. When you wish someone could step into your inner world and actually get it. You long for connection, but not just any connection. You long for someone who can meet you in the depths, not just skim the surface. And that's rare. That's why solitude feels so conflicting. It's your sanctuary, but it's also your reminder of how few people can truly understand you. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." And isn't that the truth? You could be surrounded by dozens of people and still feel lonely because none of them speak the language of your soul. Here's the reality. Solitude is not a weakness, and it's not something to be ashamed of. It's a sign of self-awareness. It shows that you value your inner world enough to protect it. Most people run from silence because silence reveals the truths they're afraid to face. But you walk into it willingly. Yes, solitude can sting. It can leave you aching for someone who truly understands. But it also forges you. It shapes your thoughts, your creativity, your resilience. It makes you self-reliant in a way that few others are. And most importantly, it prepares you for the kind of deep, meaningful connection that only solitude can make you appreciate. So if you've ever felt torn between craving time alone and aching for true companionship, know this. It's not a contradiction, it's a sign. A sign that your mind belongs to the rare few who need solitude to breathe, to think, to become who they truly are. And now we come to the final sign, the one that ties everything together, because if solitude is the space where your mind grows, then the eighth sign is the fire that drives it, your hunger for meaning. While most people chase comfort, money, or surface-level success, you crave something deeper, something that gives life purpose. And in that final sign, you'll discover why you truly think differently than 99% of people. Let me ask you this. If someone offered you a life of endless comfort, no struggles, no challenges, no uncertainty, would you take it? For most people, the answer is yes. They crave safety, predictability, and comfort above all else. But if you're still here, listening to this, you probably know in your heart that such a life would suffocate you, because you don't live for comfort. You live for meaning. This is the eighth and final sign that your mind works differently than 99% of people. You are not content with just surviving, ticking boxes, or following the script society hands you. You want more. Not more in the sense of wealth or fame, but more in the sense of depth. Think about it. How many times have you asked questions like, why am I here? What does this all mean? What's the point of success if it doesn't feel fulfilling? Most people are satisfied with shallow answers, but you can't rest until you've wrestled with the deeper ones. You've probably realized by now that life is short, fragile, unpredictable, and because of that, you don't want to waste it chasing things that don't matter. Yes, comfort feels good, but meaning gives you a reason to get out of bed in the morning. Meaning gives you strength when life hurts. Meaning gives you courage when fear tries to stop you. And here's the hard truth. Choosing meaning over comfort is not easy. It means saying no to the easy path. It means carrying burdens most people would rather avoid. It means feeling emotions that others suppress. And yes, it often means walking alone, because not everyone is ready to live with that level of depth. But here's the beauty. When you live for meaning, even your pain has purpose. Your struggles become fuel. Your scars become stories. Your loneliness becomes wisdom. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychologist, once said, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." And that's you. You live with a why. You search for it. You chase it. You cling to it. This is why you think differently than 99% of people, because you're not just living life, you're searching for the truth within it. So let's step back for a moment. We've walked through 8 signs. Your ability to see patterns others miss, your restless curiosity, your emotional depth, your sensitivity, your inner contradictions, your resistance to shallow norms, your complicated relationship with solitude, and your hunger for meaning. Do you see the bigger picture now? You're not broken. You're not too much. You're not lost. You're different, and that difference is both a gift and a burden. Yes, it means you may often feel misunderstood, out of place, even lonely. But it also means you carry within you something rare, an ability to think, feel, and live on a level most people never reach. And maybe that's why you're here, listening right now. Because deep down, you already knew you weren't like everyone else. You already knew your mind worked differently. You just needed someone to say it out loud, to remind you that what you've always felt isn't isolation, it's uniqueness. So the next time you feel like you don't belong, remember this. You belong to the rare 1%. The ones who think differently, the ones who feel deeply, the ones who see the world in ways others can't. And though it can be lonely at times, It's also extraordinary because it means you are capable of creating, of leading, of inspiring, of uncovering truths that the rest of the world is too distracted to notice. The question now is simple. What will you do with this gift? Because thinking differently is powerful, but living differently, that's where the real transformation begins. So maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop doubting yourself and start embracing the mind that sets you apart.